Every week, college football games hinge on a single word.
Touchdown! Touchdown, Texas! Touchdown, Oklahoma! Touchdown! Touchdown! Touchdown, Wisconsin! Touchdown! 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 Touchdown, Stanford! Touchdown! Touchdown, Alabama! Touchdown, Notre Dame! Touchdown! Wow!
This is Touchdown Radio. Here's Gino Torretta and Taylor Zarzour.
We love being with you on Touchdown Radio Tailgate. He is the 1992 Heisman Trophy winner. He won a couple of national championships. He's a Hall of Famer. He is Gino Torretta. I am in my high school Hall of Fame. I actually learned that I'm in my college Hall of Fame too. Huntington College, baby.
You just learned that, or they didn't have a dinner for that?
Actually, they did. I couldn't go. I had a game. Stinch reminded me that I was in the Hall of Fame and that he did the video for me when I got inducted into the Hall of Fame a couple of years ago. But not for my college football prowess, that's for sure. Mr. Torretta is the only one on this program that is going to be inducted into any Hall of Fames for that.
I would say this. There was something I learned this weekend via Twitter, because that's where everybody gets their news from, the social media.
Oh, sure.
And a Miami fan sent me a picture. There's a banner at Texas Stadium where they have, legends of the Cotton Bowl. So there's a picture, and it's, Ricky Williams, Jason White, Gino Torretta. I was like, wow, I think I only threw like 3 or 4 passes in that backup game when we kicked Texas's ass. But
that game, it was already 70-3 when you came into the game. Yeah, and Randall Thrill Hill had gotten 15 penalties at that point. But
I will say this. I do remember, because I remember Texas, when I went in, Texas came and
funny.
blitzed, and I audibled, and I'm like, all right, I got what I want. I go, I might get a TD on the first pass. Threw it perfect. Our slot receiver, he was actually a tailback, more running back. He lined up in the slot. I audible, threw him a perfect pass, and he tripped. Else I would have had a touchdown pass.
Oh, man. I got to say, G, I always thought that performance in the Cotton Bowl was the single worst we've seen in that stadium 30-plus years ago. I think Oklahoma last Saturday has surpassed that.
Yeah, I was and the shocking thing is it's defense. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, their defense has just been terrible. Yeah. Venables is a defensive guy, and I think that in the days of, and we're going to talk about the transfer portal. The transfer portal is here, and it's going to hurt some teams and it's going to help others. And I think, when coaches leave and then coaches are allowed to bring players like Lincoln Riley has, it's going to hurt. And Oklahoma is just, you're seeing the effects of it, and they have played bad the last few weeks.
Yeah, they have. And listen, I hate speculating about people, especially through 6 games, whether it's going to work. But here we are in the middle of year 2, and Brian Harsin is absolutely on the hot seat at Auburn and in the middle of year 2. But you just wonder, with all of the money that's changing hands, how long of a leash are they going to give these coaches? Gee, it used to be 4 or 5 years. Now it's, man, if you aren't getting the job done immediately, a year or 2 into the job, then you're toast. It feels much more like the professional ranks, right? Where in Major League Baseball or the NBA or certainly the National Football League, if you aren't getting the job done this year, you could be out of a job next year.
Yeah, and it's not to say that's right. I mean, obviously the Carolina Panthers and Matt Rule didn't work out, and that experiment didn't work out. And he was successful in college and built up Baylor, probably, a great program that he built back up. And I'm sure the college ranks are going to want him back. I think it goes down to Taylor, and I think that, we've seen this in pro football probably more, a la Jerry Jones, an owner being very active in running a football team and department. And not to say that's always good. And I think that these universities And I'll go back into the days of before it was a big business. And when I played, it wasn't a huge business. I mean, it was just kind of getting on TV. And when you coached, if you were Jackie Sherrill, if you name John David Crow, Heisman Trophy winner, great player, becomes athletic director at his university. And we saw a lot of that. We saw people that actually played a sport at their institution become an athletic director. And I think what has the athletic director become in today's day and age, I think a lot of it has been who has a legal background, who has a sports background, who's not going to get us sued. We need a CYA. And, but these guys,
no question.
These guys and girls are now the people that are making decisions on the coaching side. And I think that they can't, because they haven't had that experience. If they haven't been an athlete, they can't stand up to a booster or a big money person. And listen, we see it on coaching staffs now. They can't speak truth to power. You have to, and I don't care. There's going to be times where coaches, hey, they have a bad year. It's not that the game has changed for Brent Venables. Maybe the other teams have better players. And the athletic director at certain times will have to take bullets for their coaches and stand up and defend them and stop the insanity of these people and the pressure. I don't think they know any better because grass isn't always greener.
That's right. And I want to make this clear. I'm not lobbying or I'm not suggesting that Brent Venables shouldn't be the coach at Oklahoma. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that all of a sudden he's facing a tremendous amount of scrutiny as he's 3-3 coming off a 49-0 loss. And you just hit on the
Auburn.
Yeah, Auburn,
that's
absolutely.
Another year of what happens if he doesn't produce,
It is, but I think I'm not a fan of this at all. I'm not a fan of switching coaches every year or every 2 years or even every 3 years. What I'm really not a fan of is what we're doing with the transfer portal right now. I don't want to restrict a player's rights to profit off of their likeness. If we are going to have such a big business, which what is as you just described, that's what we have in college football, then the players are going to have to benefit off of it. It just like in every other capitalist environment, they're going to have to benefit off of it. I think that, and a lot of people listening can say, Taylor, that's not the way college football should be. It should be amateurism. I understand, but you can't come up with any model on the planet where the people that are executing your plan for capitalism aren't profiting. So there's no example of that ever working. That being the case, Gino, I hate the transfer portal, and I hate the idea that you can transfer whenever you want if something's not going right.
Well,
I'm doing a Georgia Vanderbilt game on Saturday, and they're one of their running backs, while he hasn't been their best, he was their best running back last year. One of their best running backs just left the team this week. I'm done. I'm going into the portal. And we're seeing that happen everywhere right now, where you have to constantly recruit your own players. And I think that's a huge problem for Brent Venables right now at Oklahoma. And it's obviously a huge problem for Brian Harsin. I don't have the remedy to solve it yet.
Oh, I do. I have the remedy. I mean, there should be two, at least for football, there should be two opportunities to transfer.
Okay.
There should be after the regular season, after your season's done, whatever that bowl game is,
right,
until spring ball. Now, here's what I don't understand. Now, you went to class, you took classes. You know how hard it is to transfer in the middle of a semester as a student, and that's not difficult for these kids. So
why can't we do what you just said? Why can't we do that?
I think there should be two. I think it should be. Listen, you're allowed after the season. And you have to do it before, I would say 2 windows. Before spring ball, so that kid can transfer and have a spring practice. And he should be able to transfer after spring practice. If he doesn't see a future within that program,
okay,
he's able to transfer. So you should have that window. Basically,
okay, so what's your basically,
so before August 1st, you have to move. But until you can't move from August 1st to January 13th, whenever, you can't move. I mean, you
Why can't we
move
do this
during regular season? I don't know, because we don't have a commissioner. We don't have, there's so much money involved in the sport. There's not the commissioner to say, hey guys, we need to have a level playing field. We can't do this. I mean, I read an article, and I don't know if it came to fruition. There was a bunch of SMU players. They were debating on sitting out after 4 games so they can keep their red shirt, and then they're going to transfer to bigger schools because they were outstanding in their first 4 games. I mean, to me, I'm like, okay, if a kid wants to transfer, fine. But you can't leave in the middle of a year. It has to be after the year. You have until August, and that's when you can move, because it just, like you said, you're recruiting. I mean, don't they call it tampering in the major leagues and in the NFL? It's clear-cut tampering. How can you say there's not tampering? How can you say, because if I'm a coach and I recruited a kid, he goes somewhere else, if that kid reaches out, that coach is going to talk to that. To me is tampering. I mean, it's just have a window. These kids can do it. They can't do it in season. It's ridiculous.
There are a lot of wonderful things about college football. We love celebrating them here on this show, and we're about to do that. One of the things that really bothers me is that this NIL transfer portal world that we're living in right now, I think what it's done is it's encouraged these players with people in their ear to say, if it's not working well for me, and or our season isn't going as well as I wanted it to, then we can give up. And I hate that idea. And one of the things I hate about it is people say, well, there's too many bowl games, which I completely disagree with. They could give me 80 bowl games if they want. I'd rather watch that than a couple of people bloviating about college football or the NFL or the NBA or something else. I'd rather watch a game.
Right.
So I'm fine with all the bowl games. I'm fine with a bunch of people that have never been on a plane before getting a free trip to go somewhere and celebrate the season they had, no matter how good or bad it was. So I wish we could get back to that. I wish that we could tell each player on each team, hey, if you're 3-3 right now, you can be part of the foundation that builds this future team to compete for national championships a year, 2, 3 from now. The next game is important, and the bowl game we get to this year is important. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like enough of that is being discussed these days. And
it's too hard on us broadcasters. You know what? I've done NFL games. It's like, oh yeah, his first 2 years he was with the Rams. He was pretty good. Then he got traded, and then he's with the Niners now. He's really good. I mean, like we're putting in notes, and you put in notes. You're like, okay, where did he start? Where's he been?
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
It's like then you got to go, okay, what kind of offense did they run? Did this quarterback run here? And how did he do? I mean, and those are the kinds of things. But listen, NIL, fine. They make the money, whatever marketing deal a kid wants to make, great. Because they haven't figured it out, and they didn't figure it out, and they tried to suppress everything. Now guys are going to make money. Big deal. To me, though, you can't, unless your coach leaves. If your coach leaves, then you could transfer. But I still think you should have a window, January to August. If you want to move, it's got to happen in that period of time.
It's a good solution. All right, coming up next, let's go through what happened last week, the impact that it has on this week and the season moving forward. We have some massive matchups in college football this weekend. We have a giant one happening at noon with Michigan again hosting Penn State, and then a couple of huge games at 3:30. Alabama's at Tennessee. Oklahoma State is at TCU. Undefeated teams in the Big 12 meeting each other. SEC meeting each other, Big 10 meeting each other. And then we have a game out west at 8 o'clock on Saturday night with an undefeated number 7 USC Trojans team playing at Utah. So some great matchups that we're about to discuss here on the program. We do have some games already that are underway here tonight, and you can certainly check on those. Baylor is playing at West Virginia right now, and UCF, the Gus Bus, which is, listen to me, they are in the New Year's 6 race. They could be the best team in the group of 5 by the end of the year. They're hosting Temple tonight. So keep those in mind if you'd like to click over on those on the SiriusXM dial. With Gino Torretta, I'm Taylor Zarzour. We're back to discuss Week 7 on Touchdown Radio Tailgate.
Did you know the Original Penguin is now the official game day gear for Touchdown Radio? Original Penguin brings a modern-minded style for today's college football fan. You can be original at Original Penguin, your next tailgate. Just visit originalpenguin.com. Use the promo code TDRadio22 and get 20% off your order. That's promo code TDRadio22 at originalpenguin.com for your special 20% discount.
The dulcet tones of Gino Torretta. I'm Taylor Zarzour. I will tell you that every time I do a promo read on television for what's coming up next, I've always thought of the late, great Pat Summerall back in the 80s when he would say, coming up next, 60 minutes, followed by murder, she wrote. He gave that great pause because there was a comma, obviously, after murder, she wrote. And John Madden would always die laughing, and you could hear him laughing like crazy on the air. Rest in peace, Angela Lansbury. I thought of that this week when she passed away at unbelievable life in her mid-90s, but it made me think of
no question.
Pat Summerall doing that read. Murder.
Hey, the other thing I didn't realize, Beauty and the Beast obviously was one of her voice roles. I didn't realize the French Candle was the Law and Order guy.
Oh,
I never knew that.
Oh, how about that? You learn something new every day.
I'll have to find out the guy's name. I'm not one for remembering actors' names, but I apologize.
Well, let me get to all these undefeated teams in college football. The top 11 in the Associated Press are all undefeated teams. Then number 13, TCU. Number 18, Syracuse. How about that? Number 25, James Madison is undefeated. And then also the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, who are not in the top 25. They are 6-0. So I want to start with these undefeated teams, Gino. Last week, TCU beat Kansas. Great game. Very impressed by the Jayhawks and the progress they've made, but they fall to the Frogs 38-31. Oklahoma State is ranked in the top. Let's see, they're now up to number 8 in the poll. They were number 7, actually, last week, and for some reason slipped. They beat Texas Tech 41-31. As you look at the Big 12, Gino, you've got number 8 Oklahoma State at 5-0, playing number 13 TCU at 5-0. Who do you think is the best team in the Big 12 so far this season? Is it one of those two, or is it somebody else?
Oh, I think it's one of those two. I don't think there's any question. I thought Dugan's played outstanding, against Oklahoma. That was the first boat race job on Oklahoma's defense. But Oklahoma State has been, I got to say, from a consistency standpoint, they've always been right there, in the Big 12. So I think this is a huge matchup. I think this is the game of the conference season. There's no question for the Big 12.
I might disagree with you, because with Ewers back and healthy for Texas, he missed the game where they lost a few weeks ago to the Red Raiders, and then obviously got hurt in the Alabama game. I think the Longhorns may have something to say about this Big 12 race. I'm not saying that you're wrong. Oklahoma State and TCU certainly are two of the best, but I think the Longhorns might have something to say about that. Let's go next to the Pac-12, where you've got number 7, Southern California, number 11, UCLA, the Bruins, the gutty little Bruins that you picked to beat UCLA, or Utah rather, by the way, last week. They're off this week. SC's in action. They're playing at Utah on Saturday night. Is the best team in the Pac-12 in Southern California, or is it up in Eugene or someplace else?
I believe the best team is in Southern California. Now, will one of those teams in the Pacific Northwest, the area we love to go and eat and enjoy the weather, would they upset either one of those teams in Southern California? I think they could. But I will say the best team in Southern California is also the best team in the Pac-12. But I'm not going to tell you which one of those it is.
You're not going to tell me?
No, okay. Because then you're going to front run me in our picks later.
Well, UCLA is not playing this week, so I think that you saw USC, because of some of the things you said in the first segment about Lincoln Riley and the transfers that he was able to bring with him to Los Angeles, is is the class of the Pac-12. Now, Oregon looked awful in week number 1, Dan Lanning against his old boss, Kirby Smart. But since then, the Ducks have been significantly better. They're not playing this week. I think USC has a slight edge over Oregon. I would love to see that game in the Pac-12 championship. Let's go to the Big Ten Conference. I know you're going to watch Michigan State play Wisconsin this week. The Badgers have a new head coach in Jim Leonard, and they looked a whole lot better last week. We'll see what they're able to do coming up this week against Michigan State. But let's get to the best of the Big Ten. You've got number 2 Ohio State. For the life of me, I don't know why they're not number 1. To me, they should be. Number 5 is Michigan in the polls. Both of those teams undefeated. Penn State is at number 10 in the rankings. They, too, are undefeated. And, of course, in the top 25. And I'll give a shout-out to our old friend Brett Bielema, 5-1, now ranked 24th in the country. Is one of the Big Ten, best of the Big Ten, playing in the Michigan-Penn State game, or are you still going with the Buckeyes, G?
I don't think there's any question. Watching Ohio State last week against Michigan State, and I'm not going to say Michigan State, they've obviously had their struggles this season. Ohio State offensively has not been at full power the entire season. Jigba Smith hasn't been out there, but 15, 20 plays. The 2 running backs have Williams and Henderson have kind of been banged up. CJ Stroud is phenomenal. I mean, he is just awesome. I think obviously Marvin Harrison, Apple might not have fallen too far from the tree, is just, the guy finds open areas, Stroud finds them, but I don't think Ohio State has been full strength offensively, and they're rolling. I don't think there's any question they're the best team in the country.
I would put them number 1 right now. I realize that their schedule maybe hasn't been as challenging. It looked like it was going to be on paper. Michigan State's nowhere close to as competitive as we thought they would be, but I think that they're the best team so far. We'll see. Georgia and Alabama and others could change our mind in the weeks to come. Let's go to the Atlantic Coast Conference. I have to say, Clemson Tigers deserve to be ranked where they're ranked. I didn't think that they were going to be this good going into the season, but they've gotten better and better as the year has gone on. They're ranked 4th in the country. They already beat Wake Forest and NC State, who are ranked 14th and 15th in the country. We do have Syracuse that's undefeated down at number 18 in the polls. You've seen a lot of ACC football so far this year too, Gino. Is Clemson clearly the best team in the conference, or is there a coastal team, maybe a North Carolina, or somebody that you think could play with them in the ACC championship game?
Well, I think I thought their biggest tests were going to be NC State and Wake Forest. I think those are the quarterback class of the conference, and they've won. I mean, like I said, I saw them against Georgia Tech, and I didn't think they were there. Now, the mark of every great team is they have to improve every single week. And that has been probably the most impressive part that I think with Clemson is DJ's improved every week. I look at USC, I wasn't really high on after they beat Stanford. They've continued to improve. And I think that if they continue to improve and that, they should be right there. But I don't see somebody on the coastal side. I mean, I thought Miami could have beaten North Carolina. But they didn't. I don't see it as a huge match at the end of the year in the ACC title game. Somebody from the coastal.
Yeah, the Clemson, of course, plays Florida State. We'll pick that game coming up a little bit later. Then they host Syracuse, who's undefeated. They're at Notre Dame on November 5th, so they have some potential landmines coming up as the season goes along. And I got to give my man, the sunglass wearing, hat backwards head coach of the Gamecocks, Shane Beamer, some credit after Mark Stoops talked trash before the season, and he had to live with the consequences in that visiting locker room on Saturday night. Clemson has South Carolina, of course, too.
Also, it also helps that your starting quarterback wasn't playing.
Yeah, that was a slight factor in the game. Maybe as valuable to any program in the country. Will Levis, the quarterback of the Cats, wasn't there on Saturday night. All right, let's get to the SEC. I am fired up about this game on Saturday. Alabama and Tennessee, number 3 playing at number 6. When I was a kid, this was the biggest rivalry game to me. I know that Alabama-Auburn means so much to so many throughout the state of Alabama, but I always just loved that the name that represented my state was playing the name that represented the state above me. And those two colors, I wish they would do like SC and UCLA do, and they would wear they would have the color rush where they both would wear their primary home uniforms in this game. I think that Knoxville is going to be up for grabs on Saturday. Clearly, Georgia also belongs in this conversation. Gino, in your mind, is it still Georgia and Alabama and Tennessee's a cut below? Or do you think going into this game, Tennessee belongs in the same conversation with Georgia and Alabama? They have to play both of them coming up.
I think Tennessee belongs in the conversation with Tennessee, Alabama. I think that the difference is there are questions with Tennessee's defense.
Yes.
And that's where whenever there's questions on really on the defensive side of the ball, you're like, I think offensively they could play with and beat and score points on anybody. But if they can't stop the other team, and I think that's why, if Bryce Young doesn't play, Tennessee definitely has a chance to win this football game. I don't think there's any question. But if Bryce Young and, his experience, he plays, I think that chance is slimmer. But Tennessee's going to score some points on anybody. And when you can do that, you have at least a fighter's chance. But the reason that Bama and Georgia are clear-cut the best in the SEC is their defenses are dominant. And they just play lights out every single weekend. They keep their teams in games.
I would also say that the Magnolia State could have something to do with who goes to the SEC championship game. Ole Miss is also ranked 9th in the country, still undefeated. Mississippi State's playing great ball, ranked 16th. They're 5-1, but you believe Alabama and Georgia are cut above, and we'll see if the Vols belong in that conversation coming up on Saturday. Well, for many of the teams, we've reached the midway mark of the season. So I think it's about time that we ask the man that won the Heisman Trophy 30 years ago, who he thinks belongs in the conversation this year. We will do that coming up next as you listen to Touchdown Radio Tailgate on ESPNU Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 84.
Hey, college football fans, the Original Penguin is now the official game day gear for Touchdown Radio. Original Penguin brings a modern-minded style for today's college football fan at their next tailgate. Go to originalpenguin.com and use promo code TDRadio22 and get 20% off your order. That's promo code TDRadio22 at originalpenguin.com for your special Touchdown Radio 20% discount. And I need some gear and some layers because as fall has progressed, it's cold as hell, and it was cold in East Lansing last week. It's going to be cold this week.
Yeah, that's the man that won the Heisman Trophy at the University of Miami, who still lives in Coral Gables, talking to you, who's got literally some thin skin, needing that extra layers. He goes up to East Lansing again this weekend. Gino, I'm going to peel the curtain back here. I could go to hundreds of websites and talk about who they believe are Heisman hopefuls. But you know what website I'm going to go to discuss the Heisman hopefuls? Heisman.com. That's the one I'm going to go to. I'm going to go to their website, Heisman.com. And these are some of the people that Paul Goldberg at Heisman.com wrote about. CJ Stroud is the first name that he has on that list. I would imagine you believe that Stroud belongs at the top of any Heisman type conversation.
I don't think there's any question that CJ Stroud, how he's played so far. I think he had 2 picks going into Michigan State. He threw a pick 6 on a miscommunication last week against Michigan State. So I think he has three picks and about 20 some. Let's see, he had 6 more. So he's got 24 touchdowns and 3 picks. I mean, this guy's got as many more touchdown passes than I threw in an entire season already. He's playing outstanding. They got a running game, and listen, their offensive line and I know the quarterback gets all the credit, and obviously he's the one that touched the ball. Their offensive line, the runt of the litter, is 6'4", 3 Bills. Their right tackle, who I said, he's tiny. He's 6'8", 350. I mean, all their dudes are dudes, and they are just smashing people on the front, and CJ Stroud and the rest of the skill guys are benefiting in Ohio State. But yeah, there's no question he would be my front runner right now.
And again, Ohio State's not playing this week, but there are some other teams that you would think have Heisman contenders that are playing in massive games, like Blake Corum, the Michigan running back, this week as they host Penn State. He already has 735 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns on the season. You would think that would matter, his performance this week. I absolutely think Bryce Young is playing, by the way, against Tennessee in Knoxville on Saturday. Lord knows they've done some things to Torretta's shoulders through the years to make sure he was okay to play. Chances are they probably will do that to Bryce Young. I think we saw, while he's got a great relationship with Jalen Milroe, he's one of his best friends, Milroe made some mistakes in the passing game against Texas A&M that could have cost Alabama that football game.
Well, the fumbles too are
right. And you see the difference that Bryce Young could have made in that game. If Young goes out there and beats Tennessee, I think the reigning Heisman winner certainly would be back to the top of the conversation. But I would also say the quarterback on the other side.
That's what I was going to say. Pause right there. I think if either Hooker or Bryce Young have a big day and the team that wins, I think that guy's right in the discussion, if not the front runner, because you know how important it is to play big in big games. And I think if Hooker upset, if they were able to beat Alabama at home, he will put up numbers. For Tennessee to win, Hendon Hooker has to put up numbers. I mean, when they beat Florida, he was 3 Bills in the area at over 100 rushing. He has to put it all together, and he has to have big stats. So I think that he would then vault himself up in that discussion and level with CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 10 touchdowns and no interceptions. He has 36 touchdowns and 3 interceptions in his Tennessee career in the last 2 years. He has been sensational. Caleb Williams out at USC, the transfer from Oklahoma, the quarterback out there. They're playing at Utah on Saturday night. You would think that would be somebody to watch. And then the guy that you already talked about, the TCU quarterback, Max Duggan, they have Oklahoma State at home on Saturday afternoon. Those are some others to watch. Again, Spencer Sanders, if we're going both quarterbacks on both sides, he's the Pokes quarterback. Yep. And Will Rogers at Mississippi State, in almost half the games it took Aaron Murray to complete the most passes in SEC history, broke the record this past Saturday. Now, of course, Mike Leach, I don't know if he's aware you're allowed to run the football. So that's part of the reason why is these little dump passes to the tailbacks basically are runs.
A glorified handoff that turns into a quarterback's best friend for your completion percentage.
You know, I think Buck Ballou, the old a quarterback at Georgia, who used to toss it 5 yards backwards to Herschel Walker. You know, I mean, I know
it counts those as completions.
They should count those as completions.
Come on, we got. What about our man Roxy Bernstein always brings up Lee Grosscup, who started the shovel pass.
Yeah, I mean, like I do think that if you're going to toss the ball 5 yards back, that takes about as much effort. But anyway, there's several others. Anybody we're leaving out?
Well, I think the guy that Caleb Williams throws to, Addison, is outstanding. I mean, I don't think there's any question of why their offense is that much better, why Caleb Williams looks as good as he does. Is Jordan Addison is just a beast. He finds ways to get open. He can't be covered. I think he's there. I think, you know, to me, the disappointing thing, I think Will Anderson gets held. Oh my God, it's got to be 10, 15 plays, snaps a down, and he's not getting the kind of the stats, I think. But I tell you what, this is, you know, you can kind of, I guess you could probably say you can play yourself out of contention or in September to being in a Heisman discussion. But you get to now to obviously the end of the season. This is when a guy separates himself, cream rises to the top. You have multiple opportunities with your rivalry games, with your conference games, with your conference championship game. This is the difference for every guy that wins the Heisman. What happens through the meaty part of the schedule, and how do you play? Because you're playing at 3:30 in the afternoon, all eyeballs are on you. How did you do? How did your team do?
Yeah, I like that you included Anderson. He might be the best player in all of college football, no matter what the position is. And it's funny you mentioned Jordan Addison. It's crazy to think that you got a guy that was at Oklahoma last year throwing passes to a guy that was at Pitt last year, and now they're both playing at USC. But welcome to college football in 2022. There's one last guy that I think needs to be on this list from near Torretta country in Napa, California. He is now turned into one of the very best tight ends I have ever seen in college football, and he's only in the middle of his sophomore year, and that is Brock Bowers. This guy is completely ridiculous at the position. He's taking jet sweeps at the tight end position and running them for touchdowns. He's a great route runner, great pass catcher, good blocker, obviously an incredible athlete. This guy might have something to say in the weeks to come too. So
there's our list. Agree, and he's going to have opportunity. The thing with the guys on the outside is, if there's other talented players, they don't get as many opportunities. Like USC, there's other wideouts that are there that they're going to make plays too. So you might not get the focal point of the offense. And Bowers, obviously, to win a national championship, you have multiple weapons on the offense. But yeah, I get upset because here's a guy from Napa, and I'm like, hell, I'm from Northern California. I went to Miami. Why didn't he come here? Or, I'm sure USC, Stanford, Washington, Oregon are like, how didn't we keep him on the West Coast?
He's in Athens, Georgia. And shameless plug, you can watch him on SEC Network at 3:30 Eastern time on Saturday. You can listen to Gino at 4 Eastern time on Touchdown Radio with Wisconsin and Michigan State. We're going to pick some games. We're not going to pick those two that we just referenced. We've got 8 others that we're going to select coming up next. It's Touchdown Radio Tailgate on ESPNU Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 84. It's Touchdown Radio Tailgate on ESPNU Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 84. He's Gino Torretta. I'm Taylor Zarzour, and it is week 7 of the college football season. Baylor playing West Virginia right now. Temple's at UCF. Tomorrow night, Navy's at SMU, and UTSA is down at Florida International. That's not an airport. That is a school very close to Torretta's house. And then we have a full slate on Saturday. Okay, I have a 5-game lead on you. Last week,
I didn't pick anything.
Last week, you picked UCLA. I picked Utah. But you picked BYU because you said it goes against everything you believe in. You can't ever pick Notre Dame. And the Irish, thankfully, took care of me. We both went 7-1 last week.
You do that to me. But I'm sure there'll be like either a Florida State, Notre Dame, or one of those schools in the SEC. I can't pick in this week. So
let's go to number 9. This is a tough game to pick right here. Number 19, Kansas at Oklahoma at 12 o'clock on ESPN2. The Jayhawks are 9-point underdogs against a Sooner squad that didn't score last week. Gino, who you got?
I don't understand this. I think this is all off tradition in Oklahoma. I know friends of mine that were at the TCU Oklahoma game says it's the worst collegiate defense they've ever seen in the history of their life. And I cannot take a team that has the worst defense ever. I'm taking Kansas.
Wow. How about that? Going with the Jayhawks to win in Norman. I can't do it. I can't imagine Kansas beating Oklahoma in football on the road. I don't know. There's just like something that says that's not ever supposed to happen.
4 in a row. Be disappointing 4 in a row for Oklahoma.
I can't do it. I'm taking OU to beat KU. I can't stand either school that they call themselves the University of, and then they call themselves OU or KU. I've never understood that. It makes no sense to me, but nevertheless, I'm taking Oklahoma to beat Kansas. Number 5, Michigan plays the number 10 ranked Penn State Nittany Lions. This is a noon start on Fox, and Michigan is a 7-point favorite at home against Penn State. This is one of those see to believe games for me too. Penn State and James Franklin over and over again lay eggs against these teams. They had that one win with the whiteout at home against Ohio State. But other than that, Gino, they lose these type games whenever they're near the top 10, and I have to see it to believe it. I'm taking Michigan to win.
Yeah, I am as well. And that's only because, I saw Penn State score a lot of points against Auburn. I thought that was more because of Auburn's ineptitude and a lot of opportunities. I don't think that Penn State's going to be able to run the ball with the success they did against Auburn. Clifford's a nice quarterback, but I guarantee Michigan's going to put pressure to say, here, you got to throw the ball to beat us. And I don't think they have the weapons to do that. And I like Michigan as well.
A part of me wishes that this next one was at a different time because you have so many great games at 3:30. Number 15, NC State, is at number 18, Syracuse. 3:30 start on ACC Network. Syracuse, Gino, is a 3.5-point favorite as an undefeated team. Who you got?
This one I think is the toughest. Kansas, Oklahoma. You're looking at names going, there's no way I'm taking Kansas at Oklahoma.
Right.
To me, I think this is two clubs. NC State, we both thought they were going to beat Clemson. They didn't do it. Here they're going on the road. Syracuse has always been good, against some good teams. I'm taking Syracuse at home.
Okay.
I played there. It's one of the toughest places to play on the road.
Got to think the Carrier Dome's going to be rocking too.
And I'm taking Syracuse at home.
I'm going with the Wolfpack. I think that NC State's got more talent.
Just live in Charlotte, you're going to get yelled at.
They should have lost to Florida State, by the way, last week. Florida State blew that game.
Oh, my God.
Tell
me about it.
I think that NC State's a little better than Syracuse, but I'm with you. I think that's a tough one to call. Number 8, Oklahoma State at number 13, TCU, the Horned Frogs, hosting the Pokes at 3:30 on ABC. Oklahoma State comes in as a 4-point dog in this game. Man, I am going with some upsets this week. I'm going Pokes on the road to win at the Frogs.
I like it. I'm going Pokes too because there's an opportunity. The Touchdown Radio Game of the Week might be Iowa State at Oklahoma State, and we root for teams on our schedule.
Yes, we do.
So I'm going Oklahoma State on the road, even though I'm a big Dugan fan and a huge fan of TCU's quarterback and their offense. That I'm just kind of rooting for Oklahoma State for selfish reasons.
Okay, next up, number 3, Alabama at number 6, Tennessee. It's a 3:30 start on CBS, and you have Tennessee as a 7.5-point underdog in this game. Who you got?
Can you take a team to beat Nick Saban? Their defense. Their offense. I want to take Tennessee. I do. I really want to take Tennessee. But I think Alabama's had too many close games recently, and I think there's going to be a laser-like focus on this game, and I think Alabama comes out and plays their best game and wins.
So here's the deal. I think that Alabama is going to the SEC championship game. I think that Alabama is going back to the college football playoff. But I don't think they're going undefeated.
You know what? I went against my Touchdown Radio ethos because we are going to the Kentucky-Tennessee game, and I really want Tennessee to win. So I'm with you. I hope I lose the game to you on that one.
My family is disowning me as I'm making this pick. Tennessee beats Bama for the first time since 2006.
Wow.
How about that? I'm
like
going
it.
Tennessee.
Go Vols.
All right, we got to go quick on these next ones. Number 4, Clemson is at FSU, 7:30 kick on ABC on Saturday night, and Clemson is the favorite in this game by 3.5. That's a close one. I'm going Clemson.
I would agree. Somebody knows something, though. Why is the spread so little?
FSU has been competitive in every game. Obviously had the The two close losses to Wake and NC State, and probably shouldn't have lost that game. Number 16, Mississippi State at number 22, Kentucky. I think the big question is Will Levis, who's a game-time decision in this game. Mississippi State's a 4-point favorite on the road. I'm taking them.
You're taking Mississippi State? I can't. I got to take the home team. I think that Mark Stoops bounces back. I think Levis is trending to play and to start, so I'm taking the Wildcats.
USC, ranked 7th, is at number 20, Utah. It's an 8 o'clock kick on Fox. Utah's the favorite in this game. Wrong team favored. SC wins.
Oh, you know what? Just to be different, since I'm at a
we got a lot of differences.
I'm going to take the two Utes. I'm taking Utah at home.
Good stuff, Gino. Thank you so much. We will be back next week to see how wrong we were on all of these games in week 7 of the college football season. Of course, week 8 is coming up next week here in the college football season. So we'll be back on Thursday night at 7 o'clock. For Gino Torretta, I'm Taylor Zarzour. Thanks for listening to Touchdown Radio Tailgate on ESPNU Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 84.